operational excellence of hydrogen refueling infrastructure, emphasizing safety, reliability, customer delight, and positive cash flow. Beyond his professional endeavors, he is deeply committed to unlocking the potential within individuals, especially those from Africa. He assists scholars and professionals in crafting successful achievement-based immigrant petitions and facilitating their lawful permanent residence in the United States. He believes that the United States is a place that rewards extraordinary talent. One of the cornerstones of his commitment to societal upliftment remains the Michael Tile Scholarship. There is a lot of update on the Michael Tile Scholarship, and I will allow him to give us those updates. So thank you so much, Dr. Tile, for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that generous introduction. Can you please enable me to share my screen as well? My presentation is on the laptop. Okay. And after that, I will share this with you so that you can send it to your team.
Thank you so much.
Am I allowed now to share?
Yes.
Okay. Please let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it now.
What are you seeing?
Yes, decarbonization, electric vehicles.
Okay. So thank you, everyone, and thanks to Shalom for setting this up and for inviting me. I think you're doing a fantastic job with Renewable Technologies, and I'm truly honored to be here. This is just a quick webinar. I would be going through this fairly rapidly, and because I want to leave space at the end for questions. And based on the questions, I might come back to one slide or the other to expand on my points. But today we want to cover a broad swath, so I'll be going again fairly rapidly, and I'll be going broad, not deep. If you want to go, if you want to drill down into any specific area, please let me know. I'll be happy to go there with you. But today I'm speaking on decarbonization and electric vehicles. And working with different controls here. Give me 1 second to move things around. Okay. So I have been given 4 pillars of decarbonization, I think, by Shalom to speak on. Energy efficiency, industrial electrification, low carbon fuels, and CCUS. So as we navigate the complexities of the 21st century, there is an urgent need to reduce our carbon emissions. And decarbonization simply means that we are minimizing the carbon dioxide emission through the adoption of these low carbon energy sources. We are reducing our energy consumption through increased energy efficiencies and cutting-edge technologies. And we're doing this ultimately so that maybe, just maybe, we'll have a chance to reverse the CO2 levels in time to cause a difference. And the reason I said maybe, just maybe, some people believe we're too late, some people believe we're powerless, but there are other people, and I belong in that camp, that says we can't just fold our hands and say we won't do anything, we need to do something. And that's the camp I belong to. So the earth provides enough to satisfy everybody's needs, but not everybody's greed. That's a quote by Mahatma Gandhi. Decarbonization is the process by which you reduce carbon dioxide emissions and other greenhouse gases. So a lot of times you hear decarbonization. Carbon dioxide is not the only gas that causes global warming. There is perfluorides, there is hydrofluorocarbons. There is even hydrogen, believe it or not, even hydrogen has a greater global warming potential than CO2. But it's still easier for us to talk in terms of carbon dioxide. Number one, because carbon dioxide was the first one to be identified. And then also because you could convert the global warming potential of other gases into carbon dioxide. So when we talk about decarbonization, we're actually talking about the carbon dioxide ionization, so to speak. And today, to help us achieve that, we're looking at these four pillars. Next slide. So for anything this general, this important, this sweeping, like decarbonization, there will be pros and cons. One advantage of decarbonization is climate change mitigation. So it reduces greenhouse gas emission, like I said, which helps with global warming. It slows down the melting of the polar ice caps, glaciers, which would, if it slows it down, then it reduces the sea level rise, because the more those ice melts, the more the sea level rise. Improved air quality. It decreases air pollution, leading to better respiratory health, reduces the negative health impacts of particulate matter. So that's another reason you might want to decarbonize, because it improves the air quality. And it leads to economic opportunities. So it creates new jobs. This is a new sector, relatively new sector. So new jobs are being created. And especially for developing countries, I'm passionate about decarbonization because it might help us create jobs. How do I mean? Very early in the energy transition journey, we introduced the concept of sustainable energy transition, or just energy transition. And what that means is that, yeah, we understand that the world needs to decarbonize, but we can't do it in a way that's going to leave poor countries even further behind. So this concept of just energy transition came up. And basically now, if done right, decarbonization can actually help alleviate poverty in poverty-stricken countries like Nigeria, because we could be carbon credit generators that could be sold on the world market. And I might come into that later, but suffice to say that one of the advantages of decarbonization is that it might lead to significant economic opportunities, now, especially for developing countries. One of the pillars of decarbonization is energy efficiency, like we've said, and that can lead to long-term energy savings, long-term cost savings. And energy security. People said, what is going to win in the future? People always ask me, is it going to be hydrogen? Is it going to be solar? Is it going to be wind? And my answer has remained the same for over 10 years. The answer, what is going to win in the future, is all of the above. The future of energy is an all of the above future. It's going to be what works best for each region. Some region, it will be hydroelectric power. Some region will still need to rely on coal. Maybe putting technologies that will make it less polluting, but coal might make more sense for them. Some region might be solar. Some might have abundant solar that they will have to store that excess energy in a form like hydrogen. So but eventually everybody can have energy security, meaning they have enough energy that the citizens of their country needs. And the disadvantage of decarbonization is just, it's expensive. If you are talking about new technologies, now you're talking about energy efficiencies, that leads to long-term cost savings. But initially, decarbonization is expensive. Nothing about it is cheap. And that's one of the challenges that people in this space are running into. I personally been affected by it. I used to build hydrogen stations for Shell in California. We've shut all of them down. We've reduced the considerably reduced the size of the team, again, because it's so expensive. and it's not profit generating right now. And then, which feeds into why it's expensive. The technology is not yet mature, so we're still testing the technology. It's not like oil and gas that has been around for a long time. But this is a challenge that we need to meet as a world, and it's also an area of active research. It's also an area where you can grow your career. So if something is new, yes, it's challenging, but it also has significant advantages. One of the pillars, like we're discussing today, is energy efficiency. And this is one where I think everybody can support, because it leaves no losers. If you think about the efficiency of machines today, it's people don't think about it when they think about decarbonization, but efficiency is actually probably the most effective pillar of decarbonization that exists. Because if an engine used to consume, say, 20 barrels of oil to do a certain work, and that same work now can be done by a different type of engine that will consume only 5 barrels of oil, then that is 15 barrels of oil that you don't need to burn or pull or convert into CO2 into the atmosphere. So energy efficiency, and then also that means you're only buying 5 barrels of oil instead of 20. So you're saving money, but you're also saving the planet in that way because you're consuming less. So any time that you can, you want to go buy the latest, because most new machines, most new engines, they are more energy efficient than before. Just like lighting, LED lighting, they consume much. They consume much less energy than before. So that's one aspect of energy efficiency. And this, like I said, I know in the previous slide, I used the picture of a car because that's like anytime you say engine or machine, that's the picture that usually comes to people's mind. But energy is used all around us. This is an example of a smart city. This is like a city of the future. It's powered by wind and solar, and they have green trees all around to capture the CO2 and release oxygen. And the city is built such that it's walkable. You just walk from one place to the other, and you don't need as much vehicle. But a smart city or the city of the future, this is how people conceptualize it. Using renewable energy, you're storing energy. And by the way, this is not just theory. Saudi Arabia is building a new city called NEOM, N-E-O-M. They're spending over 500 billion US dollars on it. And the city is going to be powered completely by renewables. It's being built on the Red Sea coast, and it's going to be powered by solar and by wind, and then the excess energy that the solar and the wind produces is going to be converted into hydrogen. And I know this because I'm the consultant on the hydrogen aspect of the project. So something like this is coming to reality soon. People have been drawing it for decades, but before the end of in this decade, we're going to see an example of this in real life. A city that is completely powered by renewables. And it's going to happen in Saudi. Another pillar of decarbonization is low carbon fuels. So when you say low carbon fuels, we just mean something that is not diesel or petrol or, jet fuel, because those ones are heavy in carbon. So we mean biofuels, RNG, renewable natural gas, hydrogen. Those are all examples of low carbon fuel. So when we say biofuels, what do we mean? We mean things like biodiesel, so like diesel that you make from vegetable oils, animal fats, recycled cooking grease. We mean ethanol, that from crops like corn, sugarcane, which people don't, very few cars run completely on ethanol, but what most do is they blend it with gasoline. So your petrol might actually be 90% actual gasoline and 10% ethanol. Biogas is another example. Renewable natural gas is also known as biomethane, is a sustainable, or you could say low carbon alternative to the conventional natural gas. So RNG is produced from organic waste materials such as agricultural residues, food waste, sewage, and then through anaerobic digestion. So that means a digestion without the presence of oxygen, it produces this gas. And the reason that RNG is popular is that in terms of its chemical composition, it's still methane, but it's a methane that is derived from agricultural or bio sources rather than the one that we're drawing from the ground. So when you burn it, you are not increasing the net CO2 in the atmosphere because it's already CO2 that exists in the atmosphere. You're getting your energy without increasing the net CO2 levels of the planet. And then this is where the big players are playing, the carbon capture, utilization, storage. The reason why I said the big players are here is it takes a lot of technological know-how and financial muscle to be able to build a CCUS facility. So for now, it's only the big players that are in there. And what carbon capture is a suite of technologies that is designed to capture carbon dioxide from industrial processes and from power generation. Carbon capture is defined as the process of capturing CO2 emissions at their source, at the source. And there are different ways you could capture it before combustion, you could capture it after combustion. You could do direct air capture, very new technology that there is actually a pilot direct air capture plant not far from where I live. You could do oxy-fuel combustion where you kind of mix it with oxygen and burn it. There's carbon utilization. CO2 can be used for enhanced oil recovery. Some people don't like that because you are capturing the CO2, but you're actually using it to produce more oil. But that's one of the ways you can use. The counter argument to that is people are going to produce more oil anyway. Either you use steam or you use CO2 or you use some other ways to produce the oil. So you might as well use the CO2. You inject CO2 into the oil fields to increase the oil recovery. Chemical productions, carbon dioxide is used in methanol, in urea, in fertilizer, in polymers. You use it in building materials for concrete. Concrete is actually carbonate. The concrete we use in building is carbonate. So it has carbon dioxide in it. That's where that U comes from, is that instead of us capturing this carbon and storing it in the ground, or is there a way that we can use it? I mean, think about it. Your Coke and Fanta, they are called carbonated beverages. Why? Because they have carbon dioxide in them. Synthetic fuels, there are different fuels too that actually uses carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide already has a lot of use today. And believe it or not, we're producing it to use them in this application. So there is this carbon utilization to say, instead of us to producing this carbon dioxide, why not capture it and then use it in these various applications? And then, of course, there is storage. Sometimes you can't use it. Sometimes it's just better for you to capture and store. And that's another reason that the big oil companies are in this field, because you need a lot of geological knowledge, because it's not every kind of ground or every kind of formation that will be conducive to you injecting carbon dioxide in it. Because it's not only you injecting carbon dioxide to store in the ground, it's also that it has to stay there. And not every geological formation would lend itself to that. So that's why, the big boys, this is where they play. On CCUS, the United States is ahead, like in most things. And there are projects going on in Texas and Illinois on building new ones, bigger ones. In the UK as well, there is the HyNet in Northwest, there is a Akon project in Scotland, and they are actually reusing existing oil and gas infrastructure to store CO2 under the North Sea. One of the most well-known ones is the one in Norway, the Longship project. China, you could bet that China is going to already be there. And we have the Quest carbon capture and storage. It's actually a Shell project in Canada and Australia. But for us to make a big dent in the CO2 in the world, this has to leave all just these countries, and it has to be more global. It's not more global right now, again, because of one of the cons of decarbonization that we talked about earlier. It's technologically it's challenging, financially it's challenging. It doesn't make money today. It's as simple as that. But the hope is that you do it once and then you do it again and then you do it again. Not only are you becoming better, but each time you do it, the price is also coming down and you are making a dent in the CO2 levels in the atmosphere. So win, 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 win. So the push is let's keep at it, even though technologically it's challenging, financially it's challenging. But if we keep at it, we are going to reap the reward. So decarbonization is going to remake our world. It's a pivotal shift from in our global approach to mitigating climate change. We are seeing the escalating effects of climate change, so we have to transition to a low carbon economy. It's a comprehensive transformation across all sectors: energy, transportation, industry, agriculture. We all have to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. But if we leverage advancements in renewable energy technologies, if we enhance energy efficiency, if we implement innovative policy measures, we can achieve our decarbonization goal. And that goal, by the way, is net zero. So when people say net zero, what do they mean? They mean that where we are removing as much CO2 from the atmosphere as we are putting it. So the balance is zero. And we want to reach that by 2050. Because scientists tell us that if we can reach that by 2050, we might be able to limit the temperature rise of the planet to just 1.5 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels. So there is a temperature that the world was at the start of the Industrial Revolution in 1860. And if we can just keep the world temperature not more than 1.5 degrees above what it was in 1860, basically, they believe that we have a shot at mitigating the worst effects of climate change on our world. The IPCC is leading the, I would say, the intellectual effort on decarbonization. They meet regularly, they publish a comprehensive assessment. I mean, these are like 1,000-page reports, comprehensive assessments of the climate change science, the mitigation strategies, and their reports offer a detailed analysis of pathways to achieve net zero. They look at energy system, land use, economic implications, the state of the technology, financing. If you want to just learn more about decarbonization or like what is all this green thing about, just pick the latest IPCC report and digest it. you'll be well on your way to speaking like an expert. And then now I talk about electric vehicles. There are two major types of electric vehicles. There's like the battery electric vehicle. So that's like the Tesla of this world. And then there is the fuel cell electric vehicle. So there is one where it has a large battery, and then you plug that battery in to charge. That's like the Tesla. And then when it's fully charged, you can drive it around town. But there is also one where you make the electricity on board. That's a fuel cell and electric vehicle. And the fuel in the fuel cell is hydrogen. So that's why hydrogen is used to power cars. Those are the two major types of electric vehicles that you have: hydrogen, fuel cell electric vehicle, or just your normal battery electric vehicle. And electric vehicles, they play a crucial role in decarbonizing the transportation sector. The decarbonization sector is one of the largest sources of greenhouse gas emissions globally. So, and one of the ways that they do this is because they have higher efficiency. EVs are way more efficient than internal combustion engines in the vehicles. Electric motors convert a higher percentage of the electrical energy from battery to power the wheels, whereas internal combustion engine vehicles, they lose a significant amount of energy as heat. You know, if you drive your car after a while and you touch it, the bonnet is hot. All of that heat is energy, and it's energy that is derived from the gasoline that you put in your car. All of that is being wasted. Not so with an electric vehicle. So this higher efficiency translates to lower overall energy consumption for the same distance. So there is a lot of advantages to using an electric vehicle. Plus, it's cool. Like some of the most beautiful cars these days are actually electric vehicles. The future of electric vehicles is bright, and there is ongoing advancement in technology. There are supportive policies. There is growing market demand. And as the world moves towards decarbonization, electric vehicles would continue to play a role in reducing emissions, in improving air quality, and in creating new economic opportunities for people. We talk about electric vehicles. What are some of the things, subcomponents inside it? Battery technology. The battery technology has improved energy density, has faster charging, which all leads to cost reduction. And we have autonomous driving. Autonomous driving just means self-driving. Many of these electric vehicles can actually drive themselves. You come in and you put it on autopilot, and that's it. The reason you're not seeing more widespread is not because of the technology, it's actually because of the policy, law, and all of that. They are yet to catch up with the technology. But, you know, I could get inside my Tesla and say auto pilot, and it drives me anywhere I go. I just put in the address of where I want to go, and I can be giving this seminar while on the road because my car is driving itself to where I want it to go. So let me talk about the global reforms that are going on. So decarbonization is not just, you know, a US thing or EU thing or China thing. It's a global thing. And global reforms aimed at transforming decarbonization are essential to achieve significant reductions in greenhouse gas emissions and mitigate the impacts of climate change. Perhaps the biggest international agreement that we have is the Paris Agreement. You know, everybody talks about the Paris Agreement that was signed in 2015. It strengthens commitment under the Paris Agreement, and it raises nationally determined contributions. So what in Paris they said is, okay, we all are nations of the world. each country should commit to what they are going to do, how they are going to reduce their carbon. Even Nigeria now has a Nigerian energy transition plan because every country needs to have one, and we need to be able to track what you are doing to mitigate climate change in your country. I know I've gone over this quite quickly, but I told you that there are plenty of economic opportunities with renewable energy. These are just a few of the things that you could do, but plenty more. And it's all not about scientists and technicians and engineers. We are going to need new financing models. We're going to need new laws. We're going to need a new superstructure to make this work because it's an economy, it's an ecosystem on its own. So everybody is needed uh, in our decarbonizing world. Again, thank you for having me. This is the end of my talk. If there is any part of it that is of interest and that people have questions about, I'm more than happy to explain it. Thanks, Shalom.
Thank you so much. I see a question in the chat box, and I'll just reiterate, if there are more questions, please, we can go ahead to share in the chat box, or you can just signify by raising your hand so I can call you up. So the first one is, are there existing technologies to capture carbon emissions from the aviation industry?
I'm not aware of any existing technologies to capture carbon. The two that I'm aware of are power plants and chemical processes. So at refineries, or at some chemical plants, and also at some power plants. The way you decarbonize the aviation sector is by using sustainable aviation fuel, SAF. So that is not heavy on carbon. And also too, people are already trying whether they can fly a plane with battery. That would be difficult. But they have said, well, but why can't we fly a plane using hydrogen? And that is something that people are looking at more because hydrogen is way more powerful than hydrocarbon and it's lighter. So you might be able to pack a lot of it on board to fly.
Okay, I do have a follow-up question to that, then maybe we can check the second one. So talking about hydrogen, what about the concerns around hydrogen storage? What's your thoughts on that? Because hydrogen is quite volatile, and what are the plans on how to keep it in the like the aviation systems and the rest?
Yeah,
Now,
so hydrogen is a very small molecule. In fact, it's the number one molecule on the periodic table. So it's very small. It's the number one element in the periodic table. An hydrogen molecule is just H2, just two of those atoms. And so it's prone to leakage, but that is an area of actual research. But it's not like it now leaks to the extent that it causes a safety hazard or a safety situation or a safety risk. That's what I'm looking for. The safety risk inherent in hydrogen storage is not greater than the safety risk inherent in hydrocarbon storage, for instance. So some people ask me, oh, is hydrogen safe? I would say, well, nothing is safe if you actually think about it. Even eating your food, you could choke and die. So even eating food every day is not safe, even though we eat 3 times a day, right? But if you're talking about, is it as safe as, say, gasoline or diesel or jet fuel or kerosene? Yes, the answer is yes.
okay. The next question is, how is carbon emissions captured? What technology is used to capture the emissions?
There are different technologies, but basically it involves you passing an effluent, so a mixture of gases, into a solution, and that solution is such that it only selectively retains the carbon dioxide. It lets the other gases pass through, and then there will be another step in the process where you can then recover the carbon dioxide, and then at that point it's your choice what you want to do with it. Do you want to just recover it and inject it into the ground, or do you want to bottle it, purify it, and then use it for one of these processes that we said, as a carbonated drink, in concrete, uh, as a feed for fertilizer, or is it just that you want to store it? But basically the process is, it's not usually the carbon dioxide alone that is produced. It's always produced with other gases. So the first thing is you remove carbon dioxide from a mixture of gases, and then that carbon dioxide, you purify it, and then you, uh, but if you're going to inject it into the ground, you don't need to purify. But if you're going to use it for another purpose down the line, then you process it to the level of purity that you.
Okay. I think there might be follow-up questions as to really how maybe the purification processes, and I also was curious to know if there are current geological successes that have happened in terms of carbon sequestration and the rest.
Yeah, I would say the ones that are running right now are successful. They've been able to uh, inject it into the ground. But it's quite difficult to talk about successes because these things are supposed to be in the ground for 100,000 years. So nobody's going to be around in 100,000 years, number one. So the fact that they are in the ground right now and they are not leaking today, or maybe they are not even leaking in the next 10 years, it's really not, a way to say, oh, they are successful, because you know, see, they're going to leak in 25 years or 50 years. We don't.
Sure.
But there is also like there is a way you monitor to see if it is leaking or not. But my point is, even if you're monitoring and it's not leaking, that the fact that it's not leaking today and it's not leaking tomorrow doesn't mean, we are not sure it's not going to leak in 50 years or in 40 years. They're telling us that, the way they look for all this geological information is, you want it to store it in a place where it can stay there for geologic time. And when you say geologic time, you're talking hundreds of thousands or even millions. Yeah. Who knows?
Okay. I think the next question is still on carbon. So Justice is asking if you can explain a bit about carbon credit and strategies around it.
Yeah, so carbon credits. Let's take an example of a company that wants to attain goal zero. Let's use Microsoft, for example. Let's say Microsoft they do carbon footprinting. That means they calculate their carbon emissions, and they say, okay, every year we're emitting 100 tons of CO2 into the atmosphere, and we want to be a net zero company, right? So that means they now need to not emit 100 tons of CO2 in the atmosphere. By 2050, every company, every country wants to be net zero. So how do we become that? Then they can say, well, we can try to be energy efficient. Maybe we should buy better engines and things like that to cut down on our carbon usage. And maybe they can use that all the way and reduce it from 100 to, say, I'm just making these numbers up, from 100 to, say, 25 tons of CO2. And they can't go any further. Now they can actually go to a carbon exchange, and the first voluntary carbon exchange is coming to Nigeria sometimes this year. Nigeria doesn't have it. They can go to a carbon exchange and buy carbon credits. So what is a carbon credit? A carbon credit is a financial instrument that represents the right to emit 1 ton of CO2. So they can go to the market and say, I want to buy 25 tons of carbon credits. And then when they buy that, they can bring their emissions to net zero. So what does that certificate represent when they say we are retiring these 25 tons of carbon credit and they show you a certificate to show them? What that means is that somebody somewhere in the world has done something to remove 25 tons of CO2 from the atmosphere. So because that person has removed 25 tons of CO2 from the atmosphere, they are now giving it to Microsoft. So, like any market, you are exchanging something for something. The person has removed 25 tons of CO2 in the atmosphere. They have a certificate that shows that. They take that certificate to a carbon exchange, and someone that wants to buy carbon credits buys that certificate from them. Why I said that is going to be an economic opportunity for a place like Nigeria is one of the ways you can generate carbon credits is by planting trees. So if you have a tree, if you plant trees, and you can get people to certify that these trees that you are planting is removing certain amount of CO2 from the atmosphere, they can generate a carbon certificate for you, or carbon credit certificate that you can then take to a carbon exchange and sell. And anybody from anywhere in the world can buy it from you. So that's carbon credit in a nutshell. A carbon credit is a financial instrument that gives you the right to emit 1 ton of CO2.
So there's actually a follow-up question to that, because I remember one of the trainings that we had, when you buy carbon credits from like the exchange, the carbon exchange institution, what happens when the people that are selling, from a region isn't the people that are buying it? So does it really offset the carbon in the atmosphere? Because we could be selling in Nigeria and people in Europe are buying it. So how does it offset the carbon in Nigeria when it is the Europeans are buying it?
That's a good question, and it's a good question, and it's a fair debate. But this is one I guess perspective to that debate is, at the end of the day, we are all in this boat together. Whether you are in Nigeria or you are in Europe, we all have just one planet called planet Earth that we need to save. So, and with atmospheric currents, what you're doing, there was a particular day in Los Angeles here. I live close to Los Angeles, that there was a fog, a very dense fog in Los Angeles, and people couldn't see very well. And by the time they ran analysis on that fog, it was actually coming from China. So industrial activities in China releasing pollutant into the atmosphere has been carried over thousands of miles and is affecting people in another country. So we're all in this boat together. So if somebody is doing something in Nigeria to remove CO2 in the atmosphere, yes, that CO2 can be claimed by somebody else in the world. Now, it might not help the air quality of that location, right? But in terms of strictly CO2 emissions, it's helping. Because the counter argument is that, why should I waste my time planting trees if nobody is going to buy the carbon credits from me? I can spend my time doing something else. So these people that are generating activities to create these carbon credits, they are doing it because they know that there is a market that they can take it to and sell and make money. If there is no market, if nobody is going to buy it, they will use their time for something else. And that is why, and another argument for that is, remember how I said energy transition has to be just, it has to be sustainable. You can't leave developing countries behind. This is one of the ways we can transfer the wealth. If Microsoft in Seattle or Shell in London wants to buy carbon credits from a poor farmer in Indonesia or in Nigeria, let them. That's how you lift people out of poverty while at the same time helping the planet. So I understand that it might not help the local air quality of one area or the other, but if you think about it just from a global standpoint, it might make sense.
Okay. I think the next one is a very interesting question, and this really came up when during the Upper East Summit. That was the one that happened sometime in Dallas, and it's AI and energy efficiency. So the question is, what is the interest in energy efficiency in data science and computational systems towards decarbonization? And really, due to the widespread use of machine learning and AI, they consume a lot of energy currently, and we know that with much more updates in the future, it will consume more and much more energy. So what is the aspect of decarbonizing these computational systems and implementing energy efficiency strategies in terms of like data analysis?
Yeah, and it's interesting because we're saying, oh, we should use less energy, we should use less energy. Energy is causing CO2. CO2 is bad for the atmosphere. And then cryptocurrency came in and it consumes a lot of energy. To mine Bitcoin is a lot of energy, right? And then we're like, oh, cryptocurrency is bad. Is this, don't let's use crypto. And then AI came. Who will not use AI? If you don't use AI, you'll be behind. But look, at the end of the day, energy is the ability to do work. I mean, what is energy? Energy is the ability to do work. And if you want to be much more productive, you are going to use much more energy. It's really that simple. So if another technology comes tomorrow now that is going to make the United States go ahead, or that is going to make a company leapfrog its competition, you can bet your dollar that they are going to adopt that technology. And if it consumes 50 times more energy than today, they will, as long as they can pay for it and it makes economic sense, they're not going to say, oh, it's going to emit 50 times more CO2. I'm not going to do something that is going to make me number one. Nobody's going to do that. Nobody's going to do that. So the thing is, we will continue to have to make those machines more efficient, but the energy growth is going to continue, which is why I always tell people, anybody telling you that oil and gas is going away, they are joking. We should encourage the use of other sources of energy, but because more and more of the world is becoming more prosperous, and even the ones that are already prosperous are using more and more energy, the total energy demand of the world is going to grow, and it's going to grow at a fast pace. So what we need is we need more and cleaner sources of energy, more and cleaner sources of energy to help. And this is also why things like carbon credits, needs to be more popularized, because at the end of the day, those companies are going to tell you that we have to run our machines. The only way we can stop emitting is for us to stop operations, and that's not going to happen. So the way they can reach net zero is to spur a lot of green projects, maybe in the developing world, and buy the credits and become net zero. which is fine. I mean, the world is big enough for everybody. So I don't mind if some areas are polluting and some areas are removing it from the atmosphere. As long as we reach net zero at the end of the day, we're good.
But besides carbon credits, are there technological advancements that or innovations that can be implemented to decarbonize AI?
Nuclear energy. So if we're really worried about cap CO2, we should, I'm a very pro nuclear energy person. Then we need to build more nuclear plants. Unfortunately, the developed world have slept for the last few decades on nuclear plants, and they're even closing them down. Like California has closed all its nuclear plants. And there was one that they wanted to close last year, and they realized that once they close it, millions of people will be without power. And then they have to stop and they have to extend it now until next year, to like end of 2030. And I don't think they will ever close it because now they're realizing that maybe we made a mistake closing all this nuclear energy plant. Germany is the same way. In fact, Germany is going back to its coal energy plants now too.
Yeah.
Because, California was like, oh, we can do away with all this nuclear energy. But then they started mandating more and more people to buy electric vehicles. Well, an electric vehicle is just a giant machine that you have to plug, and you are withdrawing more and more electricity from the atmosphere. And we have Silicon Valley with all the AI. So we are needing more energy, we don't need less. And you're going to remove a nuclear energy plant out of circulation because you don't like nuclear energy. So to me, the solution to, in the interim, the solution to many of this is you just have to build more nuclear plants.
Mm.
You just have to build more nuclear plants. They don't. So I see a question about why people closing nuclear plant. Like, oh, environmental. Because once a nuclear fuel is spent, it's still radioactive. It's going to be radioactive for, I don't know, thousands of years. So you have to find a place to store it. Uh, and of course, people are always afraid of the next, Fukushima, like what happened in Japan and nuclear disaster. But everything can, there are oil spills, refineries blow up. Everything has like safety
Yeah.
cost to it. But the way we can finance or power our energy hungry world, and the world is going to become more energy hungry, is just to build more nuclear plants. I really don't see any way out of this uh, other than build more nuclear plants. You don't nuclear energy is not going to produce CO2, and it's going to give you cheap. It's actually cheap. I mean, it's very expensive to build, but once you build it, it lasts for decades. So it's actually cheap energy, reliable energy. A nuclear power plant is more reliable than coal power plants, which is
Mm.
like the standard of reliability. Um, Cheap, reliable, abundant energy just by splitting a uranium atom.
Wow. That's really interesting because our previous conversation on these are online webinars for last month was on nuclear energy. And we did invite a nuclear scientist to speak on this. And that some of the things you're saying also resonate with some of the things that she also mentioned in terms of reliability, safety, and the huge potential of energy generation that it could give. So I would encourage everyone to check it out. It's our June edition. You'll see an extensive explanation on how nuclear energy generation, the installation and everything about the reliability. I'll go to the next question. So the next question is on renewable natural gas and biofuels. So the question is, are they really more economical, looking at the power that you need to be able to commence the installment or like commence the production of those renewable fuels, especially biofuels, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, what's the question again about the biofuels?
Okay. He said, looking at renewable natural gas and biofuels, are they more economical? Especially, you need power to be able to start these processes and to sustain them. So, looking at the economics, is it economically feasible?
That's a good question. They are expensive. The reason you would do them is if you can generate carbon credits from them that you can sell. But I'm going to tell you right now that, taking creating renewable natural gas and just buying, natural gas that is fossil fuel natural gas, renewable is more expensive. Same thing with biofuels. Oil and gas is actually quite cheap. I know petrol is expensive and things like that, but from an energy standpoint, it's actually quite cheap. Anything you can just drill for and it comes out of the ground like that, it's cheap. Anything you need to make and you have to do something to make it, it's going to be expensive. It's actually common sense when you think about it. So all of these things are quite expensive.
Okay. Yeah, that's true because I'm also on the biofuel side. So it's really the economics, it's usually more capital intensive to even do heat intensification or anything that you want to do to retrofit the energy that is being produced is usually
Yeah.
much more capital intensive.
We take our prosperity for granted. And perhaps one of the biggest gifts that God gave mankind is petroleum. You just look for a good formation, you drill, and out come this crude oil, and from it you get bitumen to tar your roads, you get petroleum that you use in plastics, in moisturizing cream, in drugs. Petroleum is everywhere. Your laptop, your mouse, everything is petroleum.
Mhm.
You use it in like tens of thousands of products that you don't even imagine. If you remove all of the cars from the road today, say they are not going to be using petroleum anymore, you are only going to remove only 12% of demand of crude oil. Everything from drugs to plastics to the wigs you are putting on to everything, cosmetics, everything is petroleum.
Petroleum.
Everything is petroleum, is oil and gas. And you just get that just by drilling, and it comes out from the earth. It's amazing. It's one of God's gift to mankind. We try to demonize it now and say, oh, it's causing CO2, it's causing CO2. Okay, tell me the alternative. Yeah, it's really no alternative. Other things can come and kind of augment and supplement and help, but I like to tell you the truth that we have a gift and we should treat it as a gift rather than try to demonize it.
Mm. It's true. Everything is petroleum, the clothes, everything.
People don't know the drugs you're taking, the capsule, the
Yeah.
the capsule that you're taking inside, and is petroleum.
Yeah, that's
Fertilizer.
true.
Without fertilizer today, we won't have civilization. The world just cannot feed 8 billion people. It's impossible. We cannot feed 8 billion people naturally. The reason we can feed 8 billion people in the world today is because of fertilizer. Fertilizer is petroleum. So I do, I just, it's not going away. Oil and gas is not going away. Not in 50 years, not in 100 years. So we can supplement it, and we should. We should not waste it. That's why I love energy efficiency. We should
Okay.
do all of the above. Some areas actually solar might make more sense for them, and then go for solar. But
Okay.
yeah,
Well, the next question, I think you answered it during your presentation when you were talking about what the carbon emissions could be used for. I remember you mentioned CO2 could be used for oil recovery. People use it also in carbonated drinks, in the production of cement and urea, like fertilizers and the rest. I don't know if there are other things that were mentioned too, but these were the
No,
ones I captured.
but that is already a lot. Cement, where will you look in this world that you won't see cement?
Mm.
That's CO2, you know. Hydrocarbon too, but CO2 as well. Urea, like I said, fertilizer.
Right.
So yeah, so there is already, and you know, we drink soda. It's also CO2.
Okay. I think the next question is a question that you've been talking about a little bit, talking about the fact that crude oil, fossil fuels will not go away. So he's like, on successful energy transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy, what will become the fate of crude oil or the ground and the byproduct of petrochemicals? I believe you've already answered it by saying it's not
Yeah.
going away.
The word energy transition is misleading, whether on purpose or not. I'm not going to get into the politics of that, but let's go back to the pre-industrial age, right? Let's go back to the day before Colonel Drake drilled the first oil well in Pennsylvania in 1859. Let's go back to that day before 1859 in that city in Pennsylvania, USA. What was the fate of the world? What was the biggest energy source? It's biomass. People cut wood for energy, right? And then there was coal that was being used in England for steam engines to power trains. When people wanted to use oil then, what would they do? They kill whales and use the fish oil for lamp, for medicine. Fish were dying. A lot of time people say, oh, this oil and gas has caused a lot of pollution. People were killing fish to get their oil for what we use petroleum for today. We will probably have no whales and dolphins, and so many fish will have gone extinct by now, if not for the advent of petroleum on a large scale. Because people needed oil then. But this is what I'm trying to say. Then the biggest source of energy is biomass. What's still the biggest source of energy in the developing world today? Biomass. Oil did not change that. It came, we are using it, we are grateful for it for the last 160 years we were using it, but people still use firewood. People still use charcoal. Coal came and we loved it and we used it in power plants and we use it to, power trains and things like that. And then when oil came, people think, oh, maybe coal. Last year, we burnt more coal than we've ever burnt in the history of burning coal. I told you, even Germany, that likes to be like the picture of green country, is restarting its coal power plants. Will you allow your citizens to go without energy? You don't want your job as a prime minister or as a politician. They are restarting their coal power plants. China is building 26 coal power plants every year. Coal. I'm talking dirty coal, not even talking about oil. And then oil came. And then later we figured out how to do gas. And then we figured out how to even liquefy the gas and we call it LNG. Has that displaced oil? No. And then after World War II, nuclear energy came and was going to be like the new big thing. And people like, maybe we don't even need all these coal power plants and we don't need to can just build nuclear plants. Well, I mean, more than 60% of France energy is still coming from nuclear energy. I get that. But we still run coal power plants. We still run natural gas power plants. We still run hydroelectric power plants. He came. He didn't chase all those other ones away. So what am I saying? I'm saying that anybody telling that we're going to transition away from crude oil, it's not based on science, it's not based on technology, and it's not based in history, it's not based in economics. In other words, they are lying to you. They're looking at you, they're lying, and they want you to think that they know something that is just no, the history of the world just doesn't support what they're saying. We're not going to move away from any of all these things. We're going to use more of them. I can agree that maybe the percentage might reduce, but the absolute value of them will not reduce. So if the world is using, right now we're using about 90 million barrels of crude oil every day. It's not going to come down. It's going to increase. Now, the 90 million barrels of crude oil might represent 45% of the total energy consumption of the world. So maybe in 2070, maybe that will come from 45% to 35%. But the 35% might actually be 150 million barrels of crude oil. So the absolute value of the oil and the gas and the coal that we're going to be using is actually going to be increasing. Their percentage as the total energy mix might reduce. Does that make sense? Yes. But their absolute value is going to increase. Therefore, that industry is going to grow, not shrink. Mm. And anybody telling you anything different is either ignorant or flat out lying. Just look around you. Coal is still being used 200 years after it was, discovered. Oil is still being used 160 years after we drilled the first oil well. Not just being used in a greater volume than it has ever been used before. It's not like, oh, but it's on its way. No, it's like this. During coronavirus, everything went down. People were like, oh yeah, we're going to turn. No, immediately after the virus subsided, all the consumptions just went. Everything came up. Skyrocketed back up again. So I don't know. Maybe I'm too honest for this webinar. I just wanted to tell you guys what's going on.
Yes, I mean, I'm already getting feedback that they love the way you're being much more practical and realistic about the energy transition, because a lot of people come up, especially when you go for summits, you go for conferences, they are on the positive side. When you hear the ministers talk and the directors of the energy summits talk, you feel like, oh my God, let's close up everything and just switch to renewables. But they are not telling you everything, the things that the politics that are under some of the things that are doing. And I've gotten to see that a lot of them are now pushing more finances that will benefit them more than even the energy transition in itself. So a lot of politics have come in. People are trying to build their
people
country.
Will do what works for them.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm seeing now.
People are going to do what works for them. So Nigeria and other developing countries should do what works for them. True. It's so simple. You think Microsoft is going to use less energy for AI just because it's going to pollute the atmosphere? You're kidding. If they don't, Huawei will do it. And they know Huawei is going to do it, so why wouldn't they do it? You think United States is going to say, oh, we're going to start using less energy because it's going to... You do what works for you, man. Yeah,
the comments right now, I wanted to read it out to you because about
what's the comment?
He said that so this is Mr. Ayoteji. He said he wrote a paper on blue hydrogen, and for 2 weeks he had to defend it to his PhD supervisor. So like for a good 2 weeks, he was trying to defend that particular paper on like the importance of blue hydrogen. And now he's like regretting writing the paper because a lot of controversies are underneath each of the renewables that we propose.
Look, I have lived this contradiction. Okay. My last job was the head of hydrogen in an oil and gas company. Okay. So I've lived this contradiction. And some of when I talk, some of that contradiction I think comes out. Okay. But here's my case for the energy transition. As someone that would tell you flat out that oil and gas is not going anywhere, here's my case for energy transition. Is that um, the the story of civilization is the story of progress. We 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 are pioneers by nature. We try to go into areas that we've not been to before. We were not satisfied with the aeroplane. We created a rocket. We're not satisfied with just staying on Earth. We went to the moon, and now we're going to the Mars, and now we're exploring other planets. That's who we are. That's who we are as humans. There's just something about the human soul that wants to reach the apex. And then after the apex has been reached, wants to conquer even more.
Yeah.
So we cannot say that don't go into hydrogen and don't go into direct air capture and don't go into CCUS. Saying that will rob us of our ingenuity. It's going to rob us of our humanity. We don't know what that next miracle energy source is going to be, but we'll never know if we don't try. But we shouldn't say because we want to explore this, we should demonize what has actually financed our civilization and is currently sustaining our civilization. I don't think we should do that either. So we should explore. And by definition, when you're exploring things, is a lot of it is not going to work, and a lot of this might not make sense. And of course, it's going to be expensive. And I can understand when somebody like Shell is closing down hydrogen stations in California. I can understand that. It paid me, it cost me my job, but I can understand it. It's going to be expensive. It's not going to be, profitable in the meantime. But yeah, it's civilization or history doesn't progress in a straight line. It's all these zigzags and zigzags and zigzags. And I also still truly believe that depending on the area in the world that you are in, depending on the policies of the government, depending on the geography of what you are blessed with naturally in that area, one source of energy might make more sense than another source of energy.
Yeah.
So we should try, you know. And if we can, like hydrogen, if we can have nuclear energy, have abundant power, then we can use that to power electrolyzers that would convert water into hydrogen and oxygen. We don't need the oxygen, we take the hydrogen, and then we can transport that over several distances to where it's needed. So it's expensive, but with iterations, the cost can come down. The very first time we drilled an hydraulic fractured well, hydraulic fracking, it was very expensive. It was in 1959. People think hydraulic fracturing just came in 2008 when it became popular. No, it was actually in 1959. But it was expensive. And then, but people still kept researching it in universities. Some companies, some startups came and went, and then at the time in the early 2000s, oil became expensive enough to make it make sense. And then people started doing, and then all of a sudden, hydraulic fracturing everywhere. So that's just the story of technology. So I don't think we should just pack up and go home. No, I think we should keep exploring. I think we should keep trying all these energy sources. because they are going to have their seat on the table. Hydrogen is not going anywhere. It's going to have a seat on the table. RNG is not going anywhere. It's going to have a seat on the table. Biofuels is not going anywhere. Solar is not going anywhere. Geothermal is not going anywhere. Hydropower is not going anywhere. Wind is not going anywhere. But to think that we are going to all of those things are going to display oil and gas. That's what I'm saying. They are lying to you. It's not going to displace it. They are going to come to oil and gas is going to say, come and eat. Sit down there. Give them fufu and ogbono soup to eat. Everybody, this table is big enough for everybody. That's what oil and gas is going to say. But to think they are going to say, oh yeah, oil and gas, leave the table. Anybody telling you that is lying to you. Anybody telling you that is lying to you. They are the landlord and they're going to be landlord for a long, long, long time.
Hmm. And I think this is actually a good time to talk about careers, because a lot of people are now being a little bit skeptical about like careers to pursue. So I have two questions here. So the first person is Mr. Ibrahim. He's saying that he's a current master's student on green hydrogen production and technology at
Good career. Good career. So I'll let you finish the question. I kind of know where this is going because I've been asked 1,000 times, but I will let you finish the question.
Mm-hmm. And so it's the same thing you're thinking. So he's asking, how would you advise him in terms of job opportunities in Nigeria or in Africa, given that it's a new field? And also considering scholarship opportunities for PhD in West, especially like in the US. What's like the career for someone that did a master's in green hydrogen production and technology?
So there was a time in Shell, let me tell you a story. There was a time in Shell that people in petroleum engineering departments, they were looking for a job in other departments because Shell was like, oh, green, 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 green. And they were just like, okay, if our work is not important or if it's going away, let's go. And then they had to start begging them to stay and increasing their bonus and all of that because they're like, no, we need you guys. We are not saying that we don't need you guys. We're just saying we are going into hydrogen, and they kind of have to soften their tone. And it's true. And I see that a lot of people ask me, like, I did petroleum engineering in bachelor's. Do you think it makes sense for me to go for my master's in petroleum engineering? And I'll say yes. I'll say, take this from me. Your granddaughter, not even your daughter or your son, your granddaughter and your grandson, if they want to work as a petroleum engineer, there will still be work for them as a petroleum engineer. That's what I tell people. But the opposite is also true. If they want to be a green hydrogen engineer, there will also be work for them in green hydrogen engineer. This is energy we're talking about. Energy is the ability to do work. And as long as you're in the energy industry, I don't care if it's called hydrogen or green or blue or gray or pink, or if it's biofuels, or if it's solar, or if it's renewable, as long as it's energy, there's going to be work for you. And if you want to say, oh, it's just coal, I'm from the coal city, I want coal, there is work for you. The important thing is for you to be excellent in your line of work. And if you're excellent in your line of work, then doors are going to open for you. And I don't care if that line is as a coal engineer, as a wood engineer, as a firewood engineer, as a solar, whatever, electrical, whatever, there is job. Like I tell you, I'm not kidding. It's a big table and everybody can sit at that table and eat for a long time. They will eat, they will say they will call their sons to come and eat. They will call their grandsons to come and eat. It's a big table and that table is not going anywhere. Unless we say we don't want to use energy, which is practically impossible.
I do have okay. I do have two follow-ups on one, it's like in the source of hydrogen, if the color matters, or how is that playing out? Is there a particular focus on a particular color of hydrogen? Because we've now had a color spectrum for hydrogen.
So the color, hydrogen molecule is H2. Okay. So a pink hydrogen will give you the same amount of energy as a purple hydrogen or a gray hydrogen or a blue hydrogen. So just letting you that. The color came about because people quickly realized that not all hydrogen are the same. Some actually, you burn more CO2 in creating them than others. So and most of the hydrogen produced today, over 95% of the hydrogen produced today is actually gray hydrogen, meaning you're burning CO2, you're burning natural gas to produce them. And when you're producing them, you are releasing CO2 in the process. But we need hydrogen. Your butter is hydrogen, it's hydrogenated oil, right? You need hydrogen in sorry, your margarine is hydrogen, hydrogenated oil. You need hydrogen to refine crude oil, hydrocracking. You need hydrogen actually to split, because the crude oil is a very complex chemical. You need hydrogen to crack it. So a lot of refineries have hydrocrackers to refine crude oil into gas. So hydrogen is produced a lot today already. And most of it is gray. Now, if you take that hydrogen that is gray and the CO2 that is emitted as natural gas is being burned to produce that, if you capture that CO2, then that hydrogen is called blue. Magically, it just becomes blue. It's not that the color is blue, but now you call it a blue hydrogen. So you are trying to say, well, it used to be gray, but I captured the CO2 that was produced when I produced it. So now it's blue hydrogen. Or even if you don't capture the CO2, if you now buy the credits, remember we talked about carbon credits. So let's say in the process of producing this hydrogen, you released 10 tons of CO2 into the atmosphere. So you go to the carbon exchange and then you buy 10 carbon credits. Magically, that hydrogen, you can call it a blue hydrogen. The day I told my wife, say, you guys are magicians. I say, yes, we are. Because now that gray hydrogen just becomes blue hydrogen. She fell off the chair the day I was explaining it to her. Because she's also a chemical engineer. You say, that's hogwash. I said, I know it's hogwash, but that's what the whole world is doing. So it didn't concern me. No, me. I didn't make these rules. I'm just a referee and umpire in the game. I didn't make the rules. So you produce it, and just because you went to a carbon exchange and you bought carbon credits, now you can call it blue. But it's still the same hydrogen molecule. Now, if the source of the electricity that you use in producing hydrogen from electrolysis is renewable, then it's green hydrogen. Or instead of burning a natural gas, you burn renewable natural gas. So biogas and biomethane. If it's renewable natural gas that you use in the steam methane reforming process, you can also still call it green hydrogen because it's not fossil fuel that you use. So green hydrogen is actually what is the best because no CO2 was emitted in its production. Now, what I believe will be a game changer in hydrogen is white hydrogen.
The dream.
The one that you drill for. Anything you can drill for, man, is a gift from God. If you can drill for something and it just comes out from the ground, my goodness, nothing beats that.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of research is being done right now, and a lot of exploration is being done right now on that. If we can get enough sources of hydrogen, enough geological sources of hydrogen, it's going to change the world. It's going to change the world.
There was this comment on carbon credits, and that would also stir up one more follow-up question, because it's like the economies in terms of those that are producing, say the developing countries are the ones producing the carbon, and then the developed will buy. So the comment is, shouldn't the developing countries receive more compensation for the carbon contribution that they are given to the economy, like to
the carbon market is like the oil and gas market. There is a price for a barrel of crude oil per day. Now there are different grades of crude oil. I understand there is, for even Nigeria has like 2 or 3 different grades, but given a certain grade of crude oil, there is a global price for it for that day, or even for that hour. If you really want to go into commodities trading, carbon credits is the same way. It's either is a carbon credit or it's not. And once it's a carbon credit, for that day or at that instant, there is a price for it. Though they can't say, oh, because this carbon credit is from Nigeria, let's add $2 to each ton. And it doesn't work that way. It's like, okay, this is the price for the carbon exchange. You bring it to the exchange and you buy or you sell. What we can do is have a low cost of production so that we can still make a lot of money selling it. And by the way, it's not only developing countries that are planting trees. We're planting trees in California too. We're planting trees everywhere. It's just that the ones in developed countries are usually more expensive. So people actually like to go to developing countries. Plus, they can say, oh, we are helping the farmers in Offa in Nigeria, So there is like 2 for 1, We are reducing our carbon footprint and we are helping those poor Africans.
Yeah, I see that a lot nowadays. Companies call it sometimes they also do this thing they call carbon offset, where they are producing their own carbon, but then installing maybe biodigesters or clean cooking stoves in African communities, and then they say that's the way they're using to offset the carbon that they are using.
Yes. Yes. So they are creating clean air for those Indian rural dwellers while they are also offsetting their carbon. And then they call somebody like Vera or the gold standards to go and certify how much carbon reduction that they have generated, and those ones will give them a certificate. Everybody feel good at the end of the day. They go home.
Exactly.
It's a big scam. It's a big scam. Legalized scam.
Exactly. I don't know what to. Sometimes I'm at a crossroad where like what to believe next, because there's a lot of politics now, greenwashing. People are redefining the energy transition to suit themselves. Businesses are coming up with different strategies, policies, and sometimes it's moving us far from what the initial reasons were. So many of us are at a crossroad, especially for us that our careers are still developing our career in the sector.
You shouldn't worry. Just be good at what you do. Honestly, just be good at what you do. None of this is going to go away. I hope I've not misled any of you to think anything is going away. Both the renewable and the non-renewable, they're not going away. I think I've said that several times today and very clear. So none of this is going away. So from a career standpoint, just worry about yourself and worry about whether you're getting better or you're getting worse. Whatever it is that your hand finds to do, just do it with all your might. Yeah, and the name of the game here, especially if you want to make a lot of money, like frankly some of us have, is just to be good at what you do. Just be good at what you do. You'll be able to exchange that knowledge, that skill, that passion, be able to exchange it for a lot. The world is awash with capital. The world is awash with. There is just so much abundance in the world. So much abundance. But it's only going to go to people who are prepared for it. So from a career standpoint and things like that, I tell people, I can talk about this all night, all day, but for you as a person, this shouldn't cause you any sleepless night. Just focus on what is in front of you. Focus on your textbooks, focus on your project, focus on your thesis. Just focus on, and if you're already working, focus on your job, do it well. All of these things, just noise at the end of the day. I'll be like, I want to position myself because of the movement that I'm seeing. No, don't worry about any movement. Just focus on what is right in front of you. All of that is going to take care of itself.
Mm. I mean, this is a very timely advice for all of us because here with us, we have PhD students, we have early career professionals, we have people in their bachelors, we have a lot of people from different sectors, like the different career levels. So that is a very timely advice. And I think it's very necessary for every one of us right now.
Yeah, yeah, just excellence. Just be excellent at what you do, you know. And everything here is big. So hydrogen, if you look at hydrogen, right? Just hydrogen from energy mix is small. Like how much of today's energy mix is coming from hydrogen? It's less than 1%. It's less than 1%. But hydrogen as a career, you can do it for the next 40 years. So that's why I say, we are talking about really, really big topics here, big topics here. So from a career standpoint, it doesn't matter for you. You can be a R&D specialist for the next 50 years and you not run out of work to do. And you not run out of money to make. Anything here you pick is massive, massive. And if you say, look, I'm from an oil company, I'm from an oil country, I just want to do my oil and make oil money, it's fine. It's fine too. Like you can make it for the rest till you retire. Just be good. Be really, really good. When they are saying who are the best people in this field,
Yeah,
let them point to you.
true.
You know, like hydrogen is small, but I'm one of the best hydrogen experts in the world, like in the world. So yeah, it might be a very, 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 very small field, but some of us are chopping claim out.
Wow.
You know,
I think there are some people, as you can see, that are already on hydrogen projects. I don't know if they can reach out to you to introduce themselves after the call. Um, if there are anything that they can work on
I,
with you or something.
yeah. I'm always willing to help, but I also only have 24 hours in a day, so
Yeah.
I'm just going to put out that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and my secretary is very like, no, you are not going to talk to that person. No, you don't have time. So we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll see.
thank you.
Yeah,
Well, there's just one final request, kind of in terms of like the scholarship aspect and things
yeah.
like that. I don't know if there's any comment you wanted to make concerning that.
Scholarship for hydrogen.
No,
The
for like
the okay, the empty
graduates.
scholarship.
Yes.
Yeah, that's been my full-time job for the last few weeks. It's gonna be my full-time job for the next few weeks. We're still very much in the middle of selection process. This year we had record turnouts. So we have 13,384 applicants from 67 countries this year. But I'm very pleased because this year also we not only do we have like the largest number of applicants ever, the largest number of countries ever, but also the largest percentage of females ever. You know,
Oh,
there
wow.
are over
Yes.
35% of the applicants this year were females, which that's the biggest percentage we get. Somebody we said that and somebody said, "What are you doing to reach out more to females?" I was like, dude, I'm somebody that celebrates small wins. We've not
Yeah.
cracked the 1/3 mark before, and now we do. I'm going to
Mhm.
enjoy that win. So yeah, so right now we're just going through the selection process. It's tough because as you can imagine,
Yeah.
um, everybody's story is unique. Everybody's worthy of the scholarship. Maybe not everybody, but a lot of people are worthy of the scholarship, you know. Um, but you can't give everybody because there is only so much resources, so much time. And also too, you always want to protect the quality of your products, like if our scholars go to the embassy and just say I'm an empty scholar, they give them the visa, they just don't even ask them questions. So you want to protect,
Yeah.
you want it to mean something. So yeah, so we're in the process. Be in another by the end of August, the winners is going to be announced. Of course, it's also going to be the largest class ever. It's going to be much, much more than the number of winners that we had last year. So yeah, I have 4 businesses. I tell people I have 4 businesses. 3 of them are making money, and one of them is losing me money. And the MC scholarship is the one, is the one losing me money. But it's the one I enjoy the most. So
Right, that's true. The one with the impact, the social impact in lives, that's usually the one we enjoy the most. That, thank you. I don't know if there are any final words, or is there anyone that wants to say have any final questions?
Just one
And
place. Yeah.
yeah, just one more question or anything. But while on that, can we turn on our cameras for a quick photo, please? Would really love to have a, a quick photo with you.
Okay. Let me know when you want to take the photo so that I turn my good side on.
Okay, okay.
Just kidding.
Um, Let me see if I can change the view. I don't know if you so the screen is still sharing, so I'm not able to see any
Oh,
of it
okay. Let
yet.
me stop. Let me stop sharing.
Thank you so much. I'm still waiting on us 2-3 minutes on just some. Oh, for those that think that they missed, no, you didn't miss. We have the section recorded, so it will be uploaded and the link will be shared with you after this section. And okay, any more persons that are willing to turn on their cameras who want to take a quick screen snapshots? Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. And we'll also provide the presentation slides too. So just stick to your emails and we'll send it across. Okay, so I'll be taking the pictures more on the count of 3. You can use your favorite emojis too. You can put it up there. So 1, 2, 3. Yes, I've taken this. I'll take another one. Oh, there are 2 slides. Yes, I got everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Taiwo. It was such a great pleasure to have you. And I hope that we can always keep the conversation going. I'll still reach out to you.
Yeah, have a good one.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining. Thank you so much for joining the section. Please stay tuned to your emails. We'll send updates, the summary of the section, and also the video recordings. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you. This is going to be the end for this section. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.